best team in Europe. Are they, Harry?
I think that's a broad statement because there's so many things that you could look at. I mean, how do you determine the best team in
How
Europe?
would you class? How would you define the best team?
I would look at you have to be dominating your league, and you'd have to be getting to the Champions League at minimum. At worst case, the semi-finals year in, year out to be classed as the best team in Europe.
So, I mean, 4 competitions that they're currently still fighting, and Pep seems to be relishing that fact, doesn't he? Does that make them one of the greatest in Europe, if not the greatest?
I think so. I mean, Chelsea aren't playing them by any chance this weekend, are they? just to dampen the expectations for Chelsea a little bit. But, of course, I think you have to look at that squad and say, yeah, name another squad in a European team.
Are you looking at the squad, or are you looking at they're the best team?
Well, I think the squad is definitely, in terms of the depth they have. They have a great manager, and they've been successful. Maybe not on a European level yet, and I think until they do that, until they bring the Champions League to Manchester City, I think it's very difficult to say they're the best team in Europe. But from the way they play, the players they have, how they can play at times, yes, to watch and to look at, I think, yes, you'd have to say they are possibly the best team in Europe.
I still think it's time. Don't get me wrong, he's by far one of the greatest managers to coach, and what he's doing at the moment is fantastic. But I think it still takes time for Man City. You know, even if they were to win the Champions League this year, it doesn't automatically class them as the best team. I think they've got to do it on a consistent, year by year. They've got to be able to do it consistently.
I mean, if you're looking at it currently, I mean, are goals a good barometer to measure how good a team is? The top scorers in Europe. I mean, you talk about the relative strength of where these other teams would be playing. I mean, question marks perhaps about the competition that PSG face on a weekly basis. But you said, Harry, didn't you? The Premier League's the best league and the most competitive. So to do it in this league, surely that stands them in good stead.
It is, and that's why the Premier League is the best league for me. But you look at the likes of Juventus, Barcelona, and even PSG, where they're running away with their leagues. So they could actually probably just take that little bit off their mind of the league, because they've got that little bit of leeway to concentrate more on the Champions League, whereas Pep's still going for 4 trophies.
Yeah.
You know, that, and like I said, they do have the squad, but it's very, very difficult.
But it's in such a demanding league, like you say, so I think that adds a little bit more to it. It's harder to balance domestic and European competitions in the Premier League than probably it is in some of the other European leagues. I think that the demand is higher.
It doesn't seem to be a manager. I mean, it might be slightly rich if he did complain about the number of fixtures that they had because of the money at his disposal to get 2 first-team squads of that type of quality, but never seems to really mention the amount of fixtures that he's got to get his teams to, does he?
No, and I think that's a real positive thing from a manager. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything positive to come out of talking about or complaining about fixtures.
You know, the one thing I do like about City is that even when he drops players, they still look that hungry to come out there and play. You know, and like you don't really get that because like he has got a huge squad, and we've seen many managers have great players sitting on the bench and you don't see him perform. But every time you see even Aguero sitting on the bench, he'll actually come on and virtually score a hat-trick the next game to say, you know what, I'm playing next week. And that's down to Pep.
But they're all fighting, aren't they? I mean, De Bruyne now is got to fight for his position in that team. You can remove what he's done in the past, what he did last season. This season, right now, he has to scrap really hard. He's had a bad season with injury. He's an absolutely brilliant player, and for me, on his day, he is their best player in my opinion. But he knows he's got to fight to get in that team. That's as a manager, there's nothing better scenario to have.
I mean, just as Sarri was extremely pleasant about Manchester City, Pep said about Chelsea that they're still in the title race. Is that just a mutual loving, taking another step further? But I mean, if you look where they are, currently in 4th. Looking to, in theory, they're in it, but from a points total, is he accurate?
I think it's a big ask for Chelsea to obviously win the league, but stranger things have happened in football. I think more closely, I think you've got to look at who's going to be going into that 4th position. I think that's what he's got to concentrate on. But again, for me, Chelsea have an opportunity to come out this weekend, and I'd like to see something different, especially in this game, especially this weekend, and hopefully he can bring it.
It'll be, because we've discussed Sarri's situation before, haven't we? And
yeah.
It's not necessarily been addressed by a thumping defeat against a team that's bottom of the league, but as Harry says, I mean, what do you expect from them in this game? I mean, is it a test for him to come out in a certain way which shows that he could lead this squad of players into like a title-winning form?
Definitely it is. I mean, we say being in the title race and winning the title are two quite different terminologies for me, and I think there's a big difference between saying one or the other. But in terms of Sarri, I think this is an opportunity for him to really see, just tactically and in terms of how he wants to play with his team, because I'm not sure if he can go and play the way that he really wants to in this game. And we talk about managers adapting and whether Guardiola's had to adapt when he's come to the Premier League, his first season. Perhaps he did tweak a few things. Perhaps he did want to do something differently and realise that the Premier League wasn't the place to do that. And I think that's Sarri's journey as well with Chelsea, because he has to look at his team, the personnel that he has, and think, well, what is the best way I can go and get a result here? And I'm not sure if his philosophy will adapt that to this group of players.
I think if they go out there and play the Sarri way, we saw it the other week when Arsenal tried to play out. Man City are that fantastic at pressing very high, because everybody knows how to play, especially playing at the Etihad. They'll get caught, and City can just turn defence straight into attack, and you could find yourself 1-0 down straight away, and that goes your whole game plan. So again, and I've watched Chelsea a lot this year, and the way that they've played out the back is risky at times. And I just think going to the Etihad, I think he may have to just change it up a little bit.
Also, out of possession, he wants to get high as well. He wants to get the back four up to the halfway line. He wants the forward players to want them to apply pressure on Manchester City's back four. All of a sudden, you've got your two centre backs close to the halfway line, and with Manchester City's counter attack or the ability to turn one or two passes into getting in behind, I think it's going to be so interesting to see how tactically he addresses this game.
Well, two men that could be key, the strikers, Aguero and Higuain, that know each other very well from playing together for Argentina. But from the point of view of the two players that we've got, I mean, we know Aguero's impact on the Premier League. We've seen Higuain basically hit the ground running, hasn't he? So it's a tantalising matchup, isn't it, from two players that, let's face it, score a hell of a lot of goals.
Yeah, there's massive goals between them, isn't there, in terms of domestically in the leagues that they've played in. I still think Higuain is sharpness-wise, he's not where he needs to be. I know he's scored a couple of goals against Huddersfield, but the first match I saw him, I think it was the FA Cup. He's not up to speed yet for me. I think you're going to need to see him for a good 5-10 matches before you see him on a real sharp way. Was there a confidence issue there?
Because Willian said that he offered him the penalty, he turned it down. I mean, it's a nice way to endear yourself to your teammates by not dominating, but surely a striker steps up, scores, and he's always up and running.
I don't think Higuain is scared of scoring goals. I think he knows where the back of the net is. I think we've seen that. I mean, I know his second goal against Huddersfield took a slight deflection, but the way he took it out, and he had no fear in kind of just hitting the target straight away. And great strikers know where the back of the net is. So for me, it wasn't. I think it was more. Hang on a sec, guys. I'm not going to tread on anyone's toes here. I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be working. I'm going to earn my goals. I think it was nice. I think it was a nice touch.
And he's only been here 5 minutes, hasn't he? But look at Sergio Aguero's effect on the Premier League and on Manchester City, and even his evolution under Pep and what Pep's asked him to do slightly differently. Is that the perfect example of how you come from another country and assert yourself as a top Premier League striker?
Well, again, before even Pep came, I mean, we talked about Aguero, what a fantastic striker he was. He was still scoring over 20 goals into near enough close to the 30s even before Pep came. And then even when Pep came, he kind of put Aguero on the bench, because he was like, well, this is how I want to play. This is what I want my striker to do. And again, Aguero wasn't probably doing it at the start, but then Aguero's looked at it and gone, well, this is only going to make me a better player. And for me, I mean, I know we've put up two great strikers there, but for me, Aguero is phenomenal. I think he's one of the best strikers in the world.
But how, Guardiola has made him better, and him adapting that and taking a bit of time out to realise I toe the line, or I start to listen and adapt to this way is going to make me a better player is absolutely brilliant. And out of possession, he's a far better player than what he was before Guardiola arrived at Manchester City. And that was the one problem that he had with him. He wasn't in the right positions. He might not have been working hard enough off the ball. So
would the arrival of other players have pushed him on as well, like Sir Jesus?
Definitely. Jesus has come in and is almost like a carbon copy in terms of style and stature. So, the pressure's on from the younger player to come in and he really has stepped up, Aguero.
Higuain's potential flourishing partnership with Eden Hazard. It's quite obvious that Hazard's not necessarily made a beeline to passing the ball the most, but he seems to have done that statistically in the game so far. Maurizio Sarri says Hazard is the best player in Europe. Obviously, you want to make your star player feel as good as possible. I mean, would you go along with that?
I mean, look, he's a fantastic player. He's beautiful to watch. You know, you talk about great players that have grace. I mean, you talk about the Zidanes when you used to watch him play. He was like watching flowing water, so smooth. When you see Hazard play, that's what he's like. He's so graceful. I mean, he's not turning like ugly or anything. It's just so smooth. The way he kind of balances with the ball, the way he glides past people. So yeah, he's definitely up there, and I think it's going to be very tough for Chelsea to hold on to him. But yeah, you have to make your number one player feel special. And we know Hazard, he loves scoring goals, but he also loves assisting. So again, if there's he is a player that if there's another one of his players in a better position, he will pass that ball because it is about the team.
Do you see the next couple of months as potentially pivotal with the way that he handles Hazard, what he gets out of Hazard, and the results for Chelsea, for Maurizio Sarri, for his longer-term Chelsea future?
It's hard to tell. I mean, historically you would say so because, you know, the managerial length of time at that club isn't, you know, particularly long, and most managers that don't seem to pick it up and have a pretty good impact near the start don't survive very long. So I'm sure he'll be aware of that. But from Hazard's point of view, I think contractually, you know, he's running quite low in terms of the term on his contract. It's going to be a problem for Chelsea come the end of the season. And it just depends on what he wants to do. And he's been at the club, I don't know how long now, 6 seasons maybe, something like that, which is a fair amount of time.
And he has won titles.
Won a lot.
But players like that, where do they want to play? At the highest level, they want to win the Champions League. That's the main kind of thing they want to look for. So maybe looking at something like that.
You may always want to change as well, Harry. Sometimes people have been at a club, you've been at a certain amount of time, and you want to change your scenery, you want a change of direction to challenge yourself differently. You know, it may just be the case of that for Hazard.
How do you see the game going on Sunday?
I'm struggling to look past the Manchester City win, to be honest. I just think they've got the bit between their teeth at the moment. They know what's at stake, and you know, I think they'll win the game.
I would agree. I can't say it, but I would actually like Chelsea to try something different because I do believe City you can get at City and you can frustrate City. The one thing with City is that they really don't go for the draw. You know, they want to go for the win, and we've seen it when, even just recently, even with Newcastle, they will push and push and push and push, and they're not content with a draw. So again, there will always be that option to kind of win against Man City, but no,
That's it for you.